understanding a little bit more about what the management of a tech org looks like, right? So
Hmm.
I'd be very curious to understand what your day in the office typically looks like, right? Do you get to write code at this point of time, or is it mostly meetings? How do you think about like what does that work, right? Like how do you sort of still find the time to build as and when
Hmm.
need to, while also being able to stay in touch with what has now become 100+ people organization, right? People in different parts,
Hmm.
different things,
Hmm.
different leaders within the organization who are managing their own sub teams of 10, 15, 20 people, whatever that might look like.
Hmm.
Give me a little
Hmm.
bit of a sense of what a CTO's a day in the life of a CTO typically looks like
Hmm.
on a normal office day. I'd be super
Hmm.
curious
Hmm.
what that's like.
Hmm. Hmm. I don't have a very uh, there's a flavor of the season, meaning every quarter is different
Mhm.
towards what is an area that you want to focus on. For example, there could be a quarter where we're trying to bring in a lot of talent. So you end up spending a lot of time, your time, sort of talking to the right kind of people, both internally and outside, and to see if you can have alignment towards shared goals, right? And that is time consuming, especially if you are trying to not just blindly mass hire, but you're sort of
Mhm. Mhm.
trying to bring in people who who sort of would make a significant difference, right, to the organization, right? Or sometimes it could be about a particular uh, area that needs deep problem solving, right? It could be in the context of a product that you're building. It could be in the context of, let's say, you having to roll up your sleeves on a specific kind of nebulous problem in technology. It could be in terms of scale, it could be in terms of quality, right? So there are flavors to the season, but almost always dictated by the business needs at that point in time, right? Um, Now, I think that when it comes to that particular aspect, it's largely around problem solving, right? You're basically trying to solve the problem. Now, as somebody in technology, it's very important to speak the language. Now, I personally find, um, you know, I myself going further and further away from writing production grade code. I did that at Raptorize. I built some of the uh, Chrome plugins, for Pixel, etc. But it it was okay to sort of do those things. We just launching 0 to 1, uh, but I don't think I'm at a stage today where I can write production level code anymore. But that said, I still sort of write code prototypes. I share it with the teams to see if
Mhm. Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
sometimes it's easier to write code and speak that language with engineers
Right.
versus explaining it over a a document or a Slack channel. You just write
Sure.
what you want, and they'll take it and say, "Okay, I get what you want, and I'll do a better job of writing that
Right.
code." Right?
And I
So
imagine that the AI prototyping and coding assistants and tools that have come up
yeah,
probably is something, I mean, that it provides a lot of leverage to especially
yeah,
senior folks like yourself to be
yeah,
able to prototype stuff very fast. So
yeah.
I imagine that's super helpful as well.
Yeah. So it really depends, like I said, on the uh, on the flavor of the season, so to speak. And when it comes to coding, still code, but largely prototypes to communicate what I really want. Um, yeah, so that would be what I do. And then there's a habit of looking at certain kinds of metrics when I wake up. Yeah, that would be largely it, right? So
Understood.
metrics and what is the need of the organization, in a given month or a quarter, right? That's
Understood.
what takes my
And
attention.
I imagine you would also have to spend time, not just say looking at the organization as it is today and
Hmm.
today's problem statements and requirements, etc. But as you were saying, to also have a more of a forward view on
Yeah.
where things will need to evolve, both in terms of tech capabilities, in terms of talent, in terms of like other
Yeah.
resources, infrastructure, etc., and to be
Yeah.
able to invest and build and prepare those things in advance. So some amount
Yeah.
of long-term thinking, I imagine, would be taking up a lot of your work today versus say when you were more focused as a functional leader trying to build just in the here and now. Today you have to think about
Yeah.
the here now and the tomorrow. In
You
in
have to, although what I've noticed is you need to make sure that you continue to have your eye on the ball when it
Mhm.
comes to execution.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think that oftentimes, and I've been personally guilty sometimes of, spending a little too much time on forward looking,
I see.
and you can see that things can slip through the cracks. Not because the team isn't up to it, but it's really about you translating consistently the ask. Right? Sometimes it can be a little premature.
Sure.
So
Sure.
so I think you need to build that execution rigor. If you're having, let's say, certain kinds of weekly meetings, let's make sure that you're having those meetings,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And let's make sure that whatever metrics you're discussing are actually tying back to what you're seeing on the ground. I think that helps while you sort of continue to focus on the things that are forward looking, right?
Got
So
it. Understood. Moving to a very important part of this conversation and especially relevant today in 2025,
yeah.
how do you hire good people? Right? Like you spoke about hiring experts, you spoke about hiring generalists, building the team and having the right talent is clearly an important focus of how you think about
Mm,
running a technology organization. So
mm,
help me understand a little bit in this day and age, how do you hire these people? How do you get them to work together effectively? And overall, like
mm.
like maintain this sort of a high performance culture within the organization. I think that's one of the top questions that the audience members had also requested that we
Got it.
understand because tech hiring
Got it.
is not very obvious. It's also
Mm.
difficult because good people are in demand, like intensely so at this point of time. So just
Yeah.
want to get a sense of how you do this and how you go
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. I think, sure. See, we all live in the knowledge, and we live and we work in the knowledge industry. And what that means is, there's a very high likelihood that there could be a rank fresher who can teach me a thing or two that I don't
Hmm.
know,
Hmm. Hmm.
especially because of the way things continue to evolve. I think the first step is to acknowledge that there could be things which uh, you know what is the value that this particular individual brings onto your table, right? How does this individual complement your team? Are there things that this individual knows which is complementary to what your team knows today, apart from things that are overlapping? That's very important in my opinion. I think it's also, so essentially what you want to do in interviews is focus a lot on understanding what the person knows
Hmm.
versus what the
Hmm.
person does not know. I think it's
Hmm.
an absolute, you know, waste of people's time if I'm sort of trying to ask a trick question, for example, right? So that to me, I think one should end up focusing a lot on what this person knows and figure out what is the value this person is bringing onto the organization. I think the second aspect is around the fact that is this person great at, let's say, writing code, but are there other areas where this person significantly lacks? Like, for example, do they know why they are doing what they're doing? Is there a
Hmm.
curiosity? Like I was saying,
Hmm.
personally, I think I value that extremely, and I put a very high value to it. I think curiosity is very important for a person asking why. I think valuing their own time, right? I'm sort of spending so much time doing this. Why am I doing it?
Hmm.
How,
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
does that change my world, or how does that change the world outside, right? I think it's important to know. right? I think integrity is super important, in my opinion. I think it's important for people to be honest about, and you could, if you're not honest and in an interview, you only can figure out so much, right? I think you do yourself grave injustice if you're sort of, and I understand people end up trying to put in their best foot when they're coming for an interview, and that's but natural because there's an asymmetry that exists in the interview, anyways, right? The person who's taking the interview, there's a bit of a power asymmetry, if you
Of
may,
course,
right?
of course.
Uh, but I think it's still important to be honest and give honest answers, because the person on the other end is assuming that you're being honest and evaluating you as such. Right? And the third bit is around resiliency, in the sense that um, um, given a diverse situation, or in a career is not a flat line; it's a sine wave. How has this person actually sort of responded to various kinds of signals? Uh, what has this person learned? When they look back, are they demonstrating enough learnability, for example, right? I think that's important, because that's what keeps you uh, alive. Right? So I think these are some of the tenets, very very core tenets.